Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome to day one of my coloring series called One Flower, 8 Ways. Today I'm going to be coloring the flower with Inktense pencils, dry. I wanted to show you my pencils first. I have the 72 count set. There's also a 6 count, a 12, a 24, and a 36. When you open it up, you can see they're all laid out so beautifully in order, and I keep them in order so that they're easy to find. This set has 2 layers. I love the pencils because they're very high quality. You get great results, dry or wet, and they rarely break when you sharpen them. I just use a regular sharpener that I got from my children's coloring box, so you don't need anything special. I have a color palette that I use to select my colors. You can download this blank, and what I did was I just colored in each of the boxes next to the color that I had, and then I took an aqua painter and I pushed the color off to the right so that I could see what that color looks like wet. So that way this is much easier to choose your colors when you have a color palette like this. So let's get started. I have stamped this flower from the Persian Motif set by Altenew on some Neenah Solar White cardstock with some Memento Tuxedo Black ink. You can use any black ink for this, for the dry pencils. When I am using the dry pencils, I tend not to use embossed images because I feel like it's hard to kind of get into the corners with the dry pencils. I'm going to color my flowers in Sun Yellow and Tangerine. I like to start with the darker color, and I do one petal at a time. So I'm going to start with the Tangerine, and I'm just going to color right in the bottom here and then around the petals where there would be a little bit of a shadow. So kind of on the edges here. And I'm putting pretty heavy pressure on the coloring, just on the edges here. And then there's a crease in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of figure out where it goes in, and it looks to me like it's going in this way. So I'm going to get a shadow right there on the edge. So I'm just going to color that a little bit. And then I'm going to take my Sun Yellow, and I'm going to color the yellow, the blank area, and then I'm going to color over the Tangerine. And when you color over them, the colors will mix, not too much, but enough to blend the 2 colors. You'll still see the 2 separate colors, but the line between them will become a little faded so that you'll get a little bit of an orangey yellow color. You can even kind of push color out with the orange to bring it into the yellow, kind of like veins of this flower. So, and I'm putting pretty heavy pressure to get the colors to blend nicely. I'm blowing it because if you rub it with your hands, you're going to get pencil all over your paper. So that's one petal, and then I'm going to move on to the next petal. So I'm going to get my shadow areas and the edges with the Tangerine once again, coloring along the edge. I'm going to get because it's kind of curling like this right here, I'm going to get a little bit of a shadow underneath, so I'm going to color that. And then of course I've got this crease again. I'll color the right side of it just like I did with the other one. And then I'm going to take my yellow and I'm going to color right over that, and you can see how the orange sort of blends into the yellow. And you get very vibrant color when you use these pencils dry. All right, I'll do one more, this large one here. Now where this is kind of folding over, where the flower is folding over, I like to color this a little darker. So I'm going to color that in with the orange, just on the right side of this crease. And then around the edge here, you'll get it on the inside of this petal, you'll get some shadow. And then back in with my yellow. It's a little harder to stay in the lines with the dry pencils because you are putting a lot of pressure on. So you just have to pay attention. Okay. So I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to finish up just these petals, and then I'll come back for the leaves. Actually, I changed my mind. I started coloring it and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to fast forward it. So I'm going to go ahead and record this, and I'll fast forward for the rest of this. All right, for my leaves, I'm going to be using felt green and apple green. The felt green is a little bit darker, so I'm going to do the same technique with these, starting with my darker green at the base of the leaves. I'm going to work my way up. I'm going to color the edges, but I'm going to leave the top mostly for the light area. Okay, coming in with the apple green. Is this the apple green? Yeah, apple green. Then I'm going to color over. And then I might lessen up the pressure a little bit as I get higher. So if you use less pressure, you'll get a little bit of a lighter color. So I'm just going to kind of color heavily on top of the felt green, and then as I get higher, I'm going to use lighter pressure. I like that. Okay. And I'm just going to color this the same way. There's a little bit of shadow here because it kind of looks like the leaves are going this way. So I'm going to, and then there's that crease in the middle again. I'm going to use that to my advantage to create some perspective. And then you'll get some dark area at the bottom where the sun is not shining. I kind of work my way up around it. Again, going on top. And then pulling out and getting a little bit lighter with my pressure. Same thing on the other side. I'll fast forward this part. Okay, now that those pieces are done, I'm going to work on the leaves. I'm going to use the same colors. These are a little bit more complicated. They have a lot more lines in them, and it's kind of hard to see what's what. It looks like there's a piece coming up, and so I'm going to color dark around that. So that's kind of how I figure out what to do here. It's sort of a guessing game. So I'm going to color around this roundish looking thing that's popping up, and this is my dark green. And I might come out on these lines a little bit because that is some kind of crease in the leaf. Actually, that one looks, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and color this a little darker. And all the way around the edge, especially at the base, I want to get some dark. And then since the leaf is facing this way, I want to color the bottom part with more shading. So I'm going to go around the edge. My pencil is really not that sharp, and I like it that way because when it's sharp, you can get kind of grooves in the paper from the tip of the pencil, and it's hard to blend that out. So I've got that, and then I'm going to use just a little bit of dark around these edges just to give some perspective. So that's my guess on the dark, and then we'll fill in with the light. So I'm going to go over the dark and bring it out toward the light. And kind of lighten it up in between a little bit by taking a little of the pressure off. But I definitely want to do darker as I'm going over the darker green. I'm sorry, heavier as I'm going over the darker green, because that way those two colors will blend. So I'm going heavy down here, and then I'm going to go light up here where I had mostly white. Darker. I'm sorry, I keep saying darker, heavier, and then lighter as I move out. That's pretty good. Okay. Now for this thing, I'm not really sure. I think I'm just going to color it. You can see I sort of wing this as I go. I'm going to color it with light and see how it looks. And then that's okay, but I think it needs a little bit of darkness down here, so it's almost an object in and of itself. And then there is that crease right there, so I'm going to color inside there. And then I'll go back with my lighter one and blend that together. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and color this other one quickly. Okay, so for my stems, what I think I'm going to do is color them light, because it's always best to start light because you can make the lighter darker, but it's harder to make the darker lighter. So I'm going to go around this whole thing with the light green. And then I'm going to take my dark, and I know I'm going to get some shadow where these two stems are meeting. So I'm going to put some dark area right in there. And then maybe add a little bit to the left so that the stem is sort of wrapping around. And then down here also for the same reason. And then I've got these two stems, sort of this leaf meeting the stem, so I'm going to add some darkness there. And there'll be a shadow coming up because that one's behind it. And then maybe a little bit here because the sun, my sun is always coming from this side. So I always try to get the lighter areas from the right. So this is going to hit the light, and then as it goes down here, it's going to get a little darker. Same with this one. And maybe a little bit on this curve. Okay, and then here, let me just do this other one quickly. I'm going to color this whole thing with light. And then add a touch of dark. And then same thing with these little guys right here. Light. Sorry, the pencil is probably in the way a little bit with the camera. These are little. And then a little bit of highlight with the dark. It's probably the easiest way to do that. So here are the results with the dry pencils. I really like the way this turned out. These pencils are extremely vibrant when you're using them dry. And you'll see when I use them wet that they get just a little tiny bit muted. Anyway, so that's session number 1, and I will see you for session number 2.